I now invite Professor Vispi Balaporia, President of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, the Consul General Alessandro De Masi, Consul General of Italy in Mumbai, and Ms. Francesca Amendola, Director of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura in Mumbai, to give us the welcome addresses. Please.
Your Excellency, Signor Vincenzo De Luca, Consul General Signor Alessandro Di Masi, Signora Francesca Amendola, Director of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura in Mumbai, and welcome all guests who have come, including Professor Bove Vidya Venkatesan from the University Department, and I'm so happy that the students are here today to add to this occasion. To me, this is a really unique event. And as I was saying to His Excellency when we met downstairs, I feel that Italy has entered the Asiatic Society today. And I am really delighted. I speak on behalf of my colleagues who are here, the Vice President and our Secretary and our other office bearers, that to them also, this is an event we've been looking forward to. I would like to also mention that we have had an earlier contacts with your predecessor, Signora Stefania Costanza. She was always interested in the Asiatic Society, and of course, I think what brings us all together is a beautiful manuscript, Dante's manuscript of the 14th century. And this is what, of course, I think brings Italy and our Asiatic Society closer together. We've had interesting talks earlier also. I remember that we had organized, Stefania had organized, a very interesting presentation on the restoration of the frescoes of Leonardo da Vinci, The Last Supper, and how it had deteriorated and how it had been restored. And tomorrow, our Vice President, Meenal Shirsagar, has arranged, that will be an online lecture. Dr. Roberto Bertilaccio, who has of course spoken earlier also, will speak tomorrow on politics and religion, literature and poetics in Dante's Commedia. I remember that soon after Francesca Amendola took over, she got in touch with me, and we had set up that online lecture that Professor Mazzuti gave, a very enlightening commentary on the comparison of two different manuscripts. And I learned a lot from what he had pointed out. And I feel that there is so much that we can still find out about this ancient manuscript, because research, to me, is never-ending. You always discover something new, someone finds out. And so, to me, research can be seen as an unending adventure. And who knows what other details may come up, even about our manuscript that we are so proud of. So, gentlemen and Francesca, I am really looking forward to many such adventures together that we could carry on with some research and in our restoration and conservation plans as well. I am really happy to welcome all of you.
Good afternoon. Well, I have to admit that there are occasions and times in which you feel a strong sentiment of pride, and this is what I'm feeling today, being here for the first time, actually for the second time, because the first time was the day I came to contribute, together with Francesca, to the organization of this beautiful event that we wanted to be blessed and honored by the ambassador that I welcome once again in Mumbai together with us. This sentiment of pride is a clear sign of the beauty and of the contribution that Italy and India can provide one each other in an even stronger way that has been happening in the past, in the next coming years. You see, we have been organizing this beautiful mission for the ambassador because we wanted him to know as much as possible about Mumbai, about its people, about its organization, about our nationals living here. And this is what we have been doing since yesterday. The ambassador has met the business community, has met with institutions, has met with universities, has been delivering speeches. But then the moment arrives when the mission crosses with beauty and elegance and history, and this is what is happening today. It is happening today because what you have in front of you, it's a unique document, a unique copy of a masterpiece that has been building the history not only of our country but also of our society. And the fact that it's here in Mumbai, it's invaluable for us. So we really wish to take care of that masterpiece as if it was a small baby, you know, that needs to be taken care of. And we are very happy to see that the condition of the code are extraordinary. So thank you so much to the Asiatic Society and to you, Professor Balaiporia, for having allowed us to witness such a beauty and such an important witnessing of our country. So this year we celebrate 700 years of the passing away of Dante, and I really wish to thank Francesca Amendola, director of the Cultural Institute here in Mumbai, for having organized this event together with you, Professor. Because 2021, 700 years of that moment, and we are here together, you know, and this is incredibly important for us because it's the starting point of a new path of cooperation we want to establish with Mumbai, with Maharashtra, and with India as a whole. So, as you see, I'm not reading any speech because there are times in which speeches come from your heart, you know, and this is one of those times. So I'm very, very, very proud of that. I'm very happy of being here. And I really wish to thank once again the Asiatic Society and yourself, dear professor, because without you, all this wouldn't have been possible, and now we are here. Of course, we are not as many as we would have wished, but we still have a strange beast called COVID going around, you know, and so we have to take care of that. But nevertheless, we are here. A few months back, that wouldn't have been possible. So we are here with Dante, we are here with the code. So thank you so much again, and I thank you, and I hope that this event will be a fantastic one because all the ingredients are there. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am truly happy to be here. To me, it's very important because under a personal level, this is the first in-presence event I have the honor to co-organize as director of the Italian Cultural Center of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura in Mumbai since I arrived here during the pandemic. More importantly, this is the first event the Italian Cultural Center organizes since 2020. And I think also, I guess it's supposed it's the same for the Asiatic Society. So as you see, we are few people. There will be more because we are recording all the events, so it will be launched online in a few days. But to me, it's very, very important, and really glad to start my adventure in Mumbai with you. I would like to thank again, but everyone is thanking, but I really think a heartfelt thanks to President Professor Vispi Balaiporia, to all the Asiatic Society group, which is a wonderful group, starting from the Honorary Secretary to Ms. Menal Krishnagar and all the others for the support and for believing in what we are doing now, today. And there could not be better event to start in presence activities for the Italian Cultural Center better than this one. Why? We are here in a very distinguished, important institution of Mumbai and of India, celebrating the major event organized by the Istituto Italiano di Cultura in the framework of the week of the Italian language in the world. We are celebrating this week with you, with the council who helped us creating this event. Thank you. And with Ambassador Vincenzo De Luca. I would really like to thank Ambassador for being here with us today. So to start also these activities, these live events in Mumbai with us. But Ambassador is very important, but we have another important participant here, which is Dante itself. Dante itself and some fellows, Italian companions here on the table. Also, I know there is Galileo Galilei. Dante, maybe, is being celebrated this year we are celebrating the 700th anniversary from his death. And all over the world, a lot of events are happening concerning all aspects of his production, of his life, of his enormous profile. He's been the first creator, the father of Italian language. He was the first adopting the ancient Italian for such an enormous work as the Divina Commedia. But we cannot say he is only Italian, because since the beginning, since his times, all people from Europe, from all the countries, felt his importance. He could impress his contemporary fellows and the generation ahead. So that's why we can find him here and all over the world. He really was a figure which belongs to all humankind. That's why you are here and we are here. But I don't want to talk about Dante, because we will talk about later with Professor Beauvais, with the intervention from Ms. Amalina, from the ambassador. I would prefer to talk about the manuscripts and the volumes we have here. They are ancient, they are old, and this is extraordinary. This manuscript arrived almost perfectly preserved till now here. But it's not only an ancient object. This is here now, this is a modern object because it's here with us. So what we can think is what we can do now. So I think that all these books and these authors are important because they arrived till us. We did not forget them through generations, because they still talk to us, and these very objects are so important to us, not only for the content, for the literature, for the history they bring along with them, but also for the very scientific issue of conserving, of restoring, and of bringing them to keep them for the next generations. And this is something we can do together now. That's why I really think this is a small but very important gathering of people willing to do something now in the contemporary times for, I would not say the enormous future, but at least for some year ahead. Like as Professor Balaporia said, I truly believe we can collaborate together. I truly wish and want, on behalf of the Italian Cultural Center of the Istituto Italiano di Cultura, to create networks with you. First of all, with the Asiatic Society, but also with Professor Beauvais, and absolutely with Professor Vidya Venkatesan from the Center of European Studies of the University of Mumbai, to create networks between scientists, academics, students, passionate people loving literature, but also loving cultural heritage. Italy, like India, has enormous experience in managing the wonderful and huge cultural heritage, and I wish we can do it together. We can build new things. So that's why when we decided together with Professor Balaporia how to title this event, we thought about beginning. I really think this may be a beginning, and I'm very glad that you're here. So let's just wish it's just a start.
We now start today's program with a talk An insight into Dante Alighieri's profile by Professor Antonio Bove, lecturer of Italian at the Center for European Studies, University of Mumbai. I invite Professor Bove to give us this talk.
Okay. Can you hear me? Si. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. Since I arrived in Mumbai, I received the news that there was this important document here, and I hoped one day to be able to see it. And now I have this opportunity. The celebration of the 700 years from Dante's death gave me this opportunity, and this new beginning is a new beginning for all the activities together. So it's a new beginning for almost anything after 2 years in which we have been locked inside. I would say that this document is so important, these manuscripts are so important also because we must remember, sometimes we forget, that we have nothing left first-hand written by Dante. This is something, of course, that always generates some wonder. I mean, such universal poet, and then we have nothing that has been left by him originally. Not even a letter, not even a line written by his own hand. So these manuscripts actually have the function to give us his work. And the fact that immediately after his death, there was a big production of these manuscripts shows his great popularity. Dante was popular in his life, but then he became even more popular after his death. Apparently, 600 manuscripts have been written in the medieval ages. And today, the surviving manuscripts are about 800 of Divina Commedia, just of Divina Commedia. Also, we must remember that we celebrate the 700 years of Dante's death, but also we celebrate 700 years of the Divina Commedia, actually of Commedia or Commedia, because Dante never gave this name Divina, of course. And so we like to think that Dante worked on this poem until till the last days of his life. We don't have an official date, of course, of publication, but now it's been agreed that until the last month of his life, 1321, he worked on this, on his poem, on his main poem. So we can say 700 years also of Divina Commedia. I said that Dante never called this Divina. Actually, we attribute this name to this adjective to Boccaccio, and we must thank Boccaccio because Boccaccio was the first to read in public the Commedia, and this is an important activity because we must remember that this is a poem to be recited. We'll do this today in our little. Let's say, little event, by amateur reader like my students. But this is an activity that's been going on for centuries. And today all our great actors, Italian actors, always perform. Because Dante and Divina Commedia must be read, but also must be listened, must be read aloud, to appreciate the great musicality, to appreciate the rhythm, the rhymes. Dante wrote in what we call terza rima, tercets of alternate rhymes in endecasyllable, the typical Italian line after him, introduced also in Europe, everywhere in Europe. So we have a successions of tercets, we have a successions of 11-syllable lines, and you have a succession of accents, unstressed, stressed syllables. what we call iambic foot. So the musicality can only be appreciated when we read it. We will give our contribution today, but there are lots of readings that you can appreciate online or everywhere you want to hear. And also recently I watched the Dante Reloaded, very nice performance in which the actor really gave an astonishing, reading of Commedia. So we must be grateful to Boccaccio because he started this tradition, reading aloud to an audience. He wrote also a manuscript and commented on it, so he continued a tradition that has been started before him, and also he used for the first time the adjective divina. Although the first manuscript that we have with the adjective divina dates back to 1555 and was printed in Venice. It's a famous edition by Giolito and Ludovico Dolci. And then from that point, we have been using that definition. Boccaccio was a great admirer of Dante. And also, I guess, he introduced Dante to the European culture. So, for example, in England, Geoffrey Chaucer wrote his Canterbury Tales, and this is in a way a sort of imitation on another level of Dante's journey. Okay, I want to concentrate on, because we can say many things about Dante, but the time is not long time, so I have to concentrate on Dante as the poet of freedom and desire. So, as we all know, Divina Commedia is didactical, allegorical journey through three reigns, from hell, through purgatory, and then heaven, of course. And the three reigns represents three levels of the human freedom, from sin, which is prison, purification through repentance, and then salvation, which is the total freedom. It's a journey of a progressive attainment of freedom as a liberation from sin. Dante, in a way, admits he's a sinner. He admits from the very beginning of the Commedia, he says that he was lost, he was out of a dark wood. He doesn't know how he ended there, but he's looking for a way to salvation. He sees the light up in the mountain, so he thinks he can climb easily the mountain. But then he's stopped by three wild animals. The three wild animals, of course, are human vices, and he is attributing to himself these vices. That's why he cannot go on, he cannot continue. He's stopped especially by a wolf. At this point, he's rescued by Virgil. He comes to his aid, sent by Beatrice. He wants to show that there is no shortcut to salvation. He has undergone a long journey. He must visit the place of suffering, of torture, of punishment, before repentance and purification, and finally salvation. The point is, there's no salvation if we are not aware of the fact that we are inherently sinner. In a way, we have to experience the darkest side of the human being, of ourself. We must be aware that we can find the way to salvation only if we make use of our free will. Dante tries to indicate in his work that salvation is a choice of freedom. And he suggests that we need help. We cannot manage on our own. In the case of Dante, was Virgil and Beatrice. They represent knowledge and love. But we also need our judgment. We also need our intellectual freedom. Both his life and his artistic work were characterized by these elements. He shows this in the originality and innovations of his poetic work, the use of volgare, the use of common language, the use of Florentine. is the father of our language, as we normally say. The language you heard in the market, the language you had at home, he did a very brave step. He took a very brave step to write such an important work because he wanted to be understood. He wanted to reach people. And so he rejected the Latin, the academic language, let's say, and he made a very brave and strong choice. So in every aspect of his life, he was very innovative in his philosophical thought, in his political commitment, even in religion. He opposed the Pope in many situations, although he was a very Christian person. He teaches us how to be intellectually independent and passionate. He was admired, but at the same time he was despised by his opponents and enemies. And he paid for his choices. As you know, he was exiled. And he was exiled in 1302, so he spent almost 20 years outside Florence, wandering in the north of Italy up to Ravenna, where he died. So his choices were free choices where he never accepted any compromise, anything that could affect his freedom. Also, we must remember sometimes that we think that he was just an intellectual. Yes, he was, of course, an intellectual, but he took a very active position in the politics of the time. He reached very top position in the government of Florence, and he even participated in battles. Remember that Florence in that period was at constant civil war. So he took part as a soldier, as a normal soldier. So let's not think always Dante as the man studying and philosophizing, let's say. But let's think of him as a man of action. He's the poet of love and desire. He expressed this beautifully in his Vita Nova. Vita Nova is about his meeting with Beatrice. He met her only at 9 years old, when he wasn't only 9 years old, and immediately fell in love with her. That's what he describes in his Vita Nova, and he had to wait another 9 years to meet her again. But of course, she was already married. So his love for her can be interpreted as a sort of spiritual love. We say sometimes platonic love. He was also married, maybe, but the love he had for her was constant and would last all his life. He made a promise in Vita Nova that he will write for her what had never had been written for any other woman. We consider sometimes the Commedia as the accomplishment of that promise. Beatrice died at 24. It was a great tragedy for him and changed his life. Dante valued freedom as one of the most precious aspects of the human life. It's the origin and the end of his artistic life. The Divina Commedia is full with the expression related to freedom. We don't have the word freedom in hell. There is not a single recurrence of this word in Inferno, because that's the place of perdition. That's the prison. That's a place of eternal damnation where there can be no room for such a word. We understand the importance Dante gives to this idea in the Purgatory. So that page is appropriately chosen. Considered as the reign of freedom, freedom from sin. At the beginning of the Purgatory, Francesca, if I'm too long, tell me to stop, okay? Okay, no, tell me. Okay, he meets an old man with a long white beard, which is very important for the significance of this part of Divina Commedia, this second part of Divina Commedia. This man is Cato. Catone, as we say, a Roman wise senator, writer, politician in the time of Caesar, who is the guardian at the entrance. The atmosphere in the purgatory is completely different from hell. We have a sense of relief. We feel the possibility of salvation, the liberation of man from the prison of Inferno, where the souls have no desire of a redemption. Cato wonders who they are. He immediately stops them because he's the guardian of this part of their journey. And Virgil introduces Dante with the famous line, libertà va cercando che si cara come sa chi per lei vita rifiuta. Dante goes seeking liberty, which is so dear as he knows who for it renounces life. These two lines are so immemorable that we'll find echo in the future Italian literary tradition. We know that Foscolo, another famous Italian writer in the 18th-19th century, used this quotation in his novel Le ultime lettere di Jacopo Ortis, the last letter of Jacopo Ortis, as an expression for Italy's lost freedom. They will become almost significant in the idea of the Italian unity, the Italian Risorgimento. I'm nearly there. Cato tries to stop the two travelers. He thinks they have escaped from hell. Virgil explains who they are. Dante is alive and has been offered the possibility to explore the afterlife reigns in order to deliver a message of redemption to humanity. This is the profound meaning of his journey. Dante represents the seeker and messenger of freedom, who has the moral duty to free humanity. Freedom as emancipation from sin, freedom of the spirit in its highest form. Now, Cato knows very well what Virgil is talking about when he says, he goes seeking liberty which is so dear as he knows who for it renounces life, because Cato renounced to his life, he committed suicide in order not in order to escape Caesar tyranny. And Dante, strangely, apparently, does not condemn him to hell, because the suiciders are condemned to hell normally in the 13th circle of hell. And not only that, but he chose him as guardian of the purgatory, so the reign of freedom. So he gives him such an important role, because he considers his choice to commit suicide instead of accepting the slavery of Caesar as a high moral decision. So in a way, not only does he justify him, but he considers him a sort of hero, morally. He had already mentioned, actually, Cato in his convivio, with this expression, quale uomo terreno più degno di significare Dio che Catone? Certo nullo. So he even gives him the role of substituting God on earth. It's such a very high opinion, such a very high consideration of Catone. Catone in the purgatory required from Dante an act of humbleness and purification to let him continue his ascent. Dante has a great ambition to remove men from the misery of the present and lead them to a state of happiness. His journey is a utopia, one of the greatest literary and philosophical utopia ever written. He has the faith, and I would say the positive arrogance to be predestined to change the world and humanity. He often uses a word that, in my opinion, nowadays we don't consider, in Italian at least, with the importance and beauty it deserves. The word is desiderio, desiderare, to desire in English. Desiderare means, the etymology of the word is longing for the stars. Because when de means far, distant, sidus, siderale, sideral in English, means star, constellation. So desiderare is this idea that we long for the stars, we long for something very high, very ambitious. The expression comes from the sailors who looked for the stars in their direction, in their orientation. I think nowadays we should reevaluate this word in all its different form, of course, and we must have the idea that to reach our happiness, to accomplish our ideas and our wishes, we need this verb, desiderare. And desiderare is connected with the stars. Not accidentally, the three canticles, the three parts of Divina Commedia ends with the word stars. I'm nearly there, nearly there. E quindi uscimmo a rivedere le stelle at the end of hell, and thence we came forth to see the stars again. Puro e disposto a salire le stelle after purgatory, I was pure and prepared to climb unto the stars. And finally, the last line, l'amore che muove il sol e l'altre stelle, the love which moved the star and the sun and the other stars. Thank you, sorry for being so long. Okay. But it's very difficult, very difficult.
Thank you, Professor Bove, for that very insightful talk on Dante Alighieri. We now have readings from Canto 5 of Inferno of the Divina Commedia. These readings will be done by students of Italian from the Center for European Studies, University of Bombay. They will be done from Italian into English and also various Indian languages. Translation is always a creative activity. And I think a good translation enriches the original text because it reaches out to many more people. I would also like to add that the translation from Italian into Tamil is being done by Dr. Geeta Kasturi, one of our managing committee members from the Asiatic Society. I invite all those who are doing the translations and readings to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm reading the introduction to the part that we are all, my friends, are going to read out. Dante is in the second circle where the lustful are punished, blown around by a never-ending storm. As in life, they allowed the passion of love to overwhelm reason. He is approached by Francesca da Polenta and her brother-in-law, Paolo Malatesta, the two lovers at the center of a violent crime in the late 13th century. Francesca's husband, Gianciotto, surprised them in their passion and killed them both. Francesca defends what she and Paolo did because it was prompted by irresistible love, as in the tales of romance. Although Dante condemns the couple to hell because they confused real life with literature, and also because they couldn't control their passions, he's so upset that he faints.
In Italian. Quali colombe dal disio chiamate, con l'ali alzate e ferme al dolce nido, venion per l'aere dal voler portate. Cotali uscir della schiera, ov è dido, a noi venendo per l'aere maligno. Sì, forte fu la futtioso grido, o animal grazioso o benigno, che visitando vai per l'aere perso. Noi che tenemmo lì il mondo di sanguigno.
In English, as turtle doves call onwards by desire, with open and steady wings to the sweet nest, fly through the air by their volition born, so came they from the band where Dido is, approaching us athwart the air malign. So strong was the affectionate appeal. O living creature, gracious and benignant, who visiting goest through the purple air, us who have stained the world incarnadine.
The next 9 lines in Italian. Se fosse amico il re del universo, noi pregheremo lui della tua pace, poi c'hai pietà del nostro mal perverso. Di quel che udire e che parlar vi piace, noi udiremo e parleremo a voi, mentre che il vento, come fa, ci tace. Siede la terra dove nata fui, sulla marina dove il Po discende, per aver pace co seguaci sui.
The same lines in Urdu now. अगर कायनात का बादशाह हमारा दोस्त होता तो हम उससे आपकी सलामती के लिए दुआ करेंगे। आप क्या सुनना और बात करना पसंद करेंगे या करते हैं? हम आपसे उसी बात पर उसी लहजे में गुफ्तगू करेंगे, जबकि हवा फ़ज़ा मानिंद एक सन्नाटा खामोश है। इस ज़मीन पर बैठता हूँ जहाँ मैं पैदा हुआ हूँ, मारीना इस्म है इसका, जहाँ हम पर सकन उतरता है पैरोकारों के साथ अमन कायम करने के लिए।
In italiano, amor cal cor gentil ratto s'apprende, prese costui della bella persona, che me fu tolta, el modo ancor m'offende. Amor, cannullo amato amar perdona, mi prese del costui piacer sì forte, che come vedi ancor non m'abbandona. Amor conduce noi ad una morte, Caina attende chi a vita ci spense. Queste parole da lor ci forporte.
इन हिंदी प्रेम जो घर कर लेता है शीघ्र सहज हृदय में, कर दिया उसको आसक्त मेरे सुंदर शरीर ने, जिससे मैं हो गई वंचित और वह ढंग अभी तक है तड़पाता। प्रेम जो एक प्रेमी को प्रेम ने करने पर करता नहीं क्षमा, मुझे किया आसक्त इस तीव्रता से आनंद सहित कि जैसे तुम देखते हो यह नहीं अभी भी मुझे छोड़ता। प्रेम ले गया हमें मृत्यु की गोद में, कहना करता है प्रतीक्षा उसकी जिसने हमारा किया जीवांत, ये शब्द उनके हम तक थे आ पहुँचे।
Quando io intesi quell'anime offense, chinai il viso e tanto il tenni basso, finché il poeta mi disse, che pensi? Quando risposi, cominciai, oh lasso, quanti dolci pensier, quanto disio meno costoro al doloroso passo. Poi mi rivolsi a loro e parlai io e cominciai, Francesca, i tuoi martiri a lagrimare mi fanno, tristo e pio.
The same lines in Bangla. এখানে আমি সেই অক্রমণতমকা আত্মাদের বুঝতে পেরেছিলাম। আমি মুখ নিচু করে তাই চেপে ধারালামা। ইয়ৎসনা না কবি আমাকে বললে না, তোমার কি মনে হয়? এখানে আমি উত্তর দিলাম, আমি শুরু করলাম। অন্তিমা, কত মধুর চিন্তা, কত ইচ্ছা তাদের। বেদনাদায়ক পারাক্ষেপকরা ডেকে নিয়ে গেলা, তারপরে আমি তাদের দিকে ফিরে বললাম এবং আমি শুরু করলাম, ফ্রান্সেস্কা, আপনারা শহীদ কত কমনা। তারা আমাকে দুঃসৎকি ও ধর্মিকা করে তোলে।
Italian. Ma dimmi, al tempo di dolci sospiri, a che e come concedette amore che conosceste i dubbiosi disiri? E quella a me. Nessun maggior dolore che ricordassi del tempo felice nella miseria, e ciò sa il tuo dottore. Ma sa conoscer la prima radice del nostro amor tu hai tanto affetto, dirò come colui che piange e dice.
The same lines in Urdu now. लेकिन मुझे बताइए, सर्द मीठी आहों के वक्त उसने किस तरह और कैसे मोहब्बत दी? क्या आपने उन तमाम मशकूक ख्वाहिशात को जानते थे? और वो मेरे लिए मज़ीद दर्द नहीं कि खुशगवार लम्हात और अवकात को याद करने से न मुश्किल हो। और आपका हाकिम ये बात जानता था, लेकिन पहला मादा मालूम हो गया। हम शदीद मोहब्बत करते हैं, जब तक वो रोए अश्कबार तो हम बयां करते हैं।
In Italian, noi leggevamo un giorno per diletto di Lancelotto come amor lo strinse. Soliravamo e senza alcun sospetto per più fiate gli occhi ci sospinse, quella lettura escolorocci il viso, ma solo un punto fu quel che ci vinse, quando leggemmo il desiato riso, esser baciato da cotanto amante, questi che mai da me non fia diviso. La bocca mi bacio tutto tremante, Galeotto fu il libro e chi lo scrisse, quel giorno più non vi leggemmo avanti.
इन हिंदी एक दिन हम मन बहलावे के तौर पर पढ़ रहे थे लैंसलॉट को कि कैसे प्रेम ने उसे किया विवश। हम दोनों थे अकेले और बिना किसी संदेह के। कई बार हमारी आँखों को मिलने के लिए उकसाया उस वचन ने और हमारे चेहरों का रंग रहा था बदल, किंतु केवल एक क्षण था ऐसा जिसने किया था हमें वशीभूत। जब हमने पढ़ा कि कैसे स्नेहमयी मुस्कुराहट भरे मुख का किया था चुंबन ऐसे अद्भुत प्रेमी ने, उसने भी जो मुझसे कभी नहीं होगा जुदा। मेरे मुख का किया था चुंबन पूरी तरह कांपते हुए, वह पुस्तक और उसका लेखक हो गए गैलहैड। उस दिन हमने नहीं पढ़ा इसमें कुछ और आगे।
In Tamil, இருவரும் சேர்ந்து படித்தோம், இருவரும் தனியே இருந்தோம். அந்த கதை எங்கள் உள்ளத்தை உருக்கியது, மனத்தில் ஒரு தீ எழும்பியது. கதை காதலர் போலே உயிர் காதலரான எங்கள் விழிகள் அடிக்கடி கூடின, எங்கள் கைகள் சேர்ந்தன, எமது கன்னத்தின் நிறம் மாறியது, உதட்டில் இளம் புன்னகை அரும்பியது. இதோ இருக்கும் பால் என் உதட்டில் மெல்லிய முத்தம் இட்டான். கினேஸ்வரி லாரன்ஸ் லெதன் காதலுக்கு துணை செய்தவன் கலேகன் அல்லவா? அவனைப் போலவே அந்த புத்தகம் எங்கள் காதலையும் தூண்டி இருவரையும் ஒருவராக்கியது. அந்த நாள் முழுதும் நாங்கள் மேற்கொண்டு படிக்கவே இல்லை.
In Italian, mentre che l'uno spirito questo disse, l'altro piangea se chiede pietate, io venni men così come io morisse, e caddi come corpo morto cade.
The last 4 lines in Hindi. जबकि एक आत्मा यह सब कह रही थी, दूसरी रो रही थी इतना कि मैं करुणा से भरा हो गया मूर्छित जैसे मरसा गया और गिर पड़ा जैसे एक मृत शरीर है गिरता.
Friends, that was indeed magical. We would have liked it to go on and on. Now we come to a talk which will be given by a conservation consultant, Amelina Kohli-Dave of the Asiatic Society of Mumbai. She will talk on the importance of ancient manuscripts and their conservation. Amelina.
Good afternoon to you all. It is a pleasure to be here on this very important day that celebrates the connection between the cultures of India and Italy. I am the conservation consultant here at the Asiatic, and it is perhaps happy coincidence that I was also trained in Italy in conservation. While I work on conservation projects here in India, I'm also connected to a conservation school in Italy, and so personally very invested in the exchange of ideas, knowledge, skills between the two countries. The story of how I ended up at the Asiatic begins, in fact, with Dante. I had come to an exhibition of this very manuscript in 2017, where I had the good fortune to meet Professor Vispi Balaporia, who is the current president, and she gave me permission to go and visit the special collections. While I was visiting the special collections, I also encountered a 1632 copy, a first edition, of Galileo's Dialogo, the dialogue concerning the two chief systems of the world. The book is on the table, and I can show it to you after the event. It was, in fact, because of Dante and Galileo that I decided I had to work here. So my journey to the Asiatic and to conservation in some ways has begun with Italy. Over time, I have observed that there are some significant differences between the cultures of conservation in India and Italy. The European School of Conservation does not often consider Eastern manuscripts in the curricula, and there are gaps in knowledge and skills that could be beneficial to conservation and restoration globally. In India, we do not have the extensive resources or training that one would encounter in Italy, and conservation is still a slow-growing field. India could benefit greatly from the ethics, processes, and approaches to conservation we see all over Italy, and I believe Italy could benefit from the study of paper, pigment, and manuscripts in India. But there are also similarities between the two. Both India and Italy have rich and diverse histories, linguistic, architectural, cultural, and of course, documentary. Both India and Italy have similar intentions when it comes to the preservation of cultural heritage. We all recognize the need for safeguarding our legacies and bringing them into the present. I believe that these similarities are the foundation for collaboration across borders. To bridge the gaps in the conservation of cultural heritage, we must build upon these similarities to create alliances and work collectively, much as we are doing today. However, it is not enough to bring the past into the present. We must also consider the future of history. As people who work in the field of cultural heritage, we all know that the dissemination of cultural knowledge, of access to historical objects through education, exhibitions, and research is imperative. We can do this through digitization, sharing ideas, and having events, but I might be a little biased through my field because I believe the safeguarding of the object itself, the original in its historical context, is at the center of this learning. We must approach the physical conservation of manuscripts, books, archives, maps, and documents, whether Indian or Italian, as the first and most important step in this journey. It is our duty to ensure that a manuscript that has existed for centuries before us also outlives us by centuries. You see, a manuscript is never static. It is a constantly evolving source of knowledge. The text in a document tells one story, and the illustrations and illuminations another. The damage that comes to an object tells us something about how it has been used in the past. It gives us information about the journey the object has taken, the environment it has been kept in, the places it has traveled. The previous repair work tells us how conservation methods have evolved over time and where we need to build on our skills. The study of a manuscript is multidisciplinary: linguistic studies, art historical research, and the scientific analysis of various components. For example, the information we have about this manuscript of Dante today will lead to more discoveries in the future, discoveries we must facilitate by prioritizing the conservation and preservation of this manuscript. There are many challenges, of course, the biggest being that there is an unequal distribution of conservation skills and resources in this country, where Italy has a very strong infrastructure and the approach to conservation training. India has a limited number of programs. There has also been a lack of funding for conservation projects, and this is especially true due to the pandemic. As a conservator, I also think we have a somewhat unique problem. While we encourage the conservation of manuscripts and documents, we often ignore that conservation should restore them according to the original structure. For instance, the rebinding of a manuscript should ideally be similar to the original binding of the manuscript. New conservation interventions should keep in mind the unique makeup of each object to preserve their historical significance. This is a practice that is common in Italy, but has not quite manifested in India yet. Whether the document is Indian or Italian, I hope we can build towards a conservation approach that takes into consideration this particular practice. It is in this hope, the hope that we can all work together to achieve these goals, that brings us here today. That a multicultural approach to the conservation and dissemination of cultural heritage is facilitated by our collective action. That we can honor the journey a manuscript has taken to get here while working on a comprehensive conservation plan for the future. India and Italy have shared legacies. One of them is in the room today. This manuscript is exceptionally well preserved, especially considering the age, and degradation is minimal considering the environment. But I think we have some steps yet to take to ensure its longevity and the proliferation of the depth of knowledge present in it. And so I am excited to see what the next few years will bring. For all sorts of valuable manuscripts and books present here, whether it is parchment or palm leaf or paper, we have the opportunity to grow through working together. And I am looking forward to the nurturing of this particular connection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amelina. That was a very interesting talk on the importance of preserving our heritage of manuscripts. We now have the honor and privilege of hearing the keynote speech made by His Excellency Vincenzo De Luca, the Ambassador of Italy to India.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me thank Professor Balaporia, President Asiatic Society of Mumbai, for hosting and working with us for this event. Our Consul General Alessandro De Masi, our Director of the Cultural Institute Francesca Mendola, and also I want to thank so much Professor Bove here with the lecture on Dante, and Mrs. Dave for the very useful proposal we have received to work together on conservation of this heritage on book. I can tell you, Mrs. Dave, that we are ready to discuss with you and with the Asiatic Society a new modality of collaboration between our Center for the Preservation, Conservation, Restoration of the heritage we have in the manuscript and books. And in Italy, you know, we have a very important tradition on this. I had the privilege to study in Naples, where the National Library has more than 1 million books, so many from the ancient period, but in so many other cities. In Florence, there is the National Library, and many also small cities. I think you studied in Recanati, that is in the Marche. So with our Consulate General and with our Cultural Institute, we studied together how to go on in this collaboration with Mumbai, with the Asiatic Society, to promote further projects on this. But let me also say that this morning I had a meeting with the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, and one of the topics of the discussion we had today was precisely on heritage, because Italy is the country with the highest number of UNESCO sites in the world, 59, and India also has a very, very high number, and also Maharashtra, of course. The historical center of Mumbai, as the historical center of Naples, are UNESCO heritage, universal heritage sites. So also in all this dimension of heritage, we can share experience, we can promote collaboration, and also we can discuss vision on heritage. For us, heritage is very much regeneration of tradition, regeneration of histories, and not only conservation of single monuments. So this was the idea in Italy in the 70s, and also carried out in the following years in many cities in Italy. And we regenerated the historical centers in Italy in the last, let's say, 20 years. Also preventing cars from having access to some part of the city, and trying to have more tradition with the revival of these activities in handcraft or in restoration and other activities. But now, after almost 2 years of service in India, I'm also excited and happy to have one of the first culture event with physical presence here in Mumbai. Also, we had some in Delhi the last few days, but it's really exciting after such a long period of time that prevent me from having an official visit. This is my first official visit to Maharashtra and to Mumbai after more than 1 year and a half of my presence here in India. And what better occasion to have this wonderful event at the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, one of the most ancient and distinguished cultural institutions in India, home to a collection of manuscripts. We have seen some of them, one of the most prestigious actually, the Commedia, as we can call it, Divine, had been a successive description of Commedia, but Commedia was the original name. Professor Bove was right in remembering this the description of the masterpiece of Dante Alighieri. The vast cultural heritage conserved at these premises reminds us that culture has no border. The extraordinary manuscript of Commedia is the best example. But together with a bunch of ancient manuscripts of the Commedia spread all over the world, it represents an important knot at an ideal network binding Mumbai to Italy. It is also a way to create a bridge. Manuscript heritage is a fundamental bridge between regions, between population and countries. Being here is also, I would say, it's a really important moment for me, because all this heritage brings us to have more and more people-to-people connection. Now that the measures for COVID are a little bit reduced in terms of opening, and we have more possibility to travel, hopefully in the coming months. We want also to promote much more cultural tourism between Italy and Maharashtra. But coming back to the Commedia, Dante not only crosses boundaries and territories, but also time and generation. This is witnessed today by the excellent, congratulations to all of you students of the Center for European Studies. I was really surprised to hear so many different languages with passion, these readings of Commedia. And also the same passion that animated the presentation of Professor Bove. I'm grateful for it. Italian language is very deeply rooted in the history and the cultural tradition of Italy. Of course, Italian language comes from Latin. We have origin in the Greek language. Greek and Latin language are the core of all the Western languages. Also, the language we use today, English, has a lot of words coming from Latin, coming from Greek. And so it's very important to understand the fil rouge of the evolution of languages, and the importance also of the richness of language. Because when a language is rich, it means that behind the language there is a thought that is rich. You can understand that the Greek language had more than 600,000 words. 600,000 words was an estimation of the total number of words of the Greek language. Italian language is a very rich language, and is about 200,000 words. But today, unfortunately, this richness has been a little bit shrinked. Now I know that according to a survey, the students, they use no more than 50,000 words, even less, depends on the degree of education. But this is a pity, because the richness of language is the richness of thought, of thinking, of the personality, of the richness of a human being. So we have to cultivate the articulation of the words, and certainly in this country like India, Sanskrit, one of the best examples on how profound is this language. how rich is the language, and how important is the philosophy and the thinking that is beyond this language. The same for Urdu, Bengal, Tamil. The beauty of India is also the diversity of language, the diversity of cultural expressions, and this is also a similarity with Italy. Italy is a country of diversification and stratification of culture, influence from the Mediterranean, from Northern Europe, from East, from West. This is an important asset for a country. It's not a challenge, it's an opportunity to promote. But now, since language is so beautiful, and also the sound of Italian language is so attractive, I want now a little bit to come back to the commedia, just with these verses. Amor, cannullo amato, amar perdona, mi prese del costui piacer sì forte che, come vedi, ancor non m'abbandona. Love, that exempts no one beloved from loving, sides me with pleasure of this man so strongly, that, as to ceased, he doth not yet desert me. What do you prefer, the first or the second? But I now try also to pronounce these verses in Hindi language. Forgive me about the pronunciation. Prem jo ek premi ko prem ne karne par karta nahin shama mujhke cha asakt is tivrata se anand sait chi jese tum dekhte ho ya nahin abni bi mujhke chotta. Right? Dante attributes this verse to Francesca, as you know, if you read the Commedia. The unlucky young woman in love with her mate soul, Paolo, but we can interpret them in the broader sense of the love for culture. Those who are seized by the passion for culture will never let it go. And now let me make my observation on this point of the faith in culture. That is a pillar in the Commedia. Is a travel through the well-being or the other world where the well-being can be achieved thanks to culture. Culture is felt as a light of the intellect and an instrument of liberation from ignorance and passion. And the concept of the poetry is not intended as an escape from reality, but as a way to reach spiritual well-being. This theme has been taken up also by one of the most important European philosophers, the Dutch Spinoza, in his treatise on ethics in the 17th century, and is present also in the Sanskrit philosophy, if you think about it. In the Sanskrit philosophical tradition, thought and meditation, culture and meditation, and the word Sanskrit is culture in Hindi, as I have studied to and learn, represent the way to govern instincts and material impulses and achieve a full realization of the human being. You see how many similarities, of course, with different approach, but the idea that culture can give you the best well-being in this life, and for those who think there is another life, also an instrument to achieve the spiritual life. So culture is not only the happiness and fulfillment we may feel when we enjoy the beauty of such verses, culture also implies the duty and the honor and the responsibility to care for the conservation of this ancient manuscript and volume of our heritage, as well as to understand and valorize the story and all the knowledge they bring along with them in order to transmit them to the future generation. Italy has a huge capital in terms of expertise and knowledge, as I mentioned before. And we are ready to work with the Asiatic Society, with the experts and all the scholars who are interested in the conservation and promotion of the manuscript, of the heritage in literature, and we are more than happy to be here with you and to hear from the students the verses of the Commedia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that wonderful and very rich keynote address, where you gave us so many fresh insights and perceptions. And above all, you spoke about collaboration with the Asiatic Society of Mumbai, which would lead, according to me, to a true dialogue of cultures between Italy and our country. And finally, I loved what you read in Italian, and also wonderful that you could read it in Hindi. But if you ask me, I preferred the Italian. So melodious, it was sheer music. Thank you. Now we come to the end of our program, this excellent program, and I hope many others will follow. As was already said, being in this Darbar Hall, beautiful Darbar Hall, after one whole year has been like a breath of fresh air. And now I invite our Honorary Secretary, Dr. Usha Vijaya Lakshmi, to give us a vote of thanks.
All beautiful things come to an end, and should this function on Dante. It is time to propose a vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank His Excellency Ambassador of Italy, Mr. Vincenzo De Luca, for gracing the occasion with his presence and for giving the keynote address. I thank Italian Consul Alessandro De Masi for planning this new beginning. I thank Professor Antonio Bovi for giving an excellent insight into the profile of Dante Alighieri. I thank Ms. Francesca Amentola of the Italian Cultural Center for coordinating this program. I thank the Consulate of Italy and the Center for European Studies of the University of Mumbai for collaborating with the Asiatic Society in presenting Dante in various versions and translations. And I thank all those young speakers who really did it too well. And I thank Dr. Vidya Venkatesan for her hard work. And I also would like to remember Dr. Karthikeyan Rangarajan, who gave this Tamil Dante to us. I thank the audience for being present despite the COVID times. And I thank all those who put in efforts for the smooth conduct of this program. I hope our association goes from strength to strength. Thank you all for being here and being with us.
We have requested His Excellency to write in our visitors book, so we're just taking a few minutes to do that.
In Hindi, of course.
Yeah.